3 weeks ago, the new VP said my job title should be mascot. Said it with a smirk that could curdle milk. Tie perfectly knotted, hair so shellacked it could deflect bullets. Eyes glinting with the kind of entitlement only found in Harvard dorms and ski-in/ski-out airbums. I was sipping coffee in the war room when he strutted in, looked at my notes, actual strategy, decades of ops data cross-referenced with investor sentiment, and asked if I wanted to fetch lunch. I didn't answer, just smiled. That Midwestern, slow blink kind of smile that says, "Sure, buddy, keep digging." He thinks I'm weak. Thinks I'm here because daddy needed a tax write-off in khakis. Thinks my muted cardigans and quiet tone mean I won't shiv him under the boardroom table. That's the thing about these golden parachute types. They only respect the loudest person in the room. They don't see the knife until it's in their back, and I'm a ghost with a blade. The smirk started day one. He walked in on a Monday, all energy drinks and LinkedIn swagger, and declared we were gonna disrupt legacy workflows with high-velocity insights. I asked what that meant. He blinked, then started in on his deck. Oh, the decks. Slides like a Jackson Pollock of meaningless KPIs, branding buzzwords duct taped to bar graphs he clearly didn't build. He talked over analysts, cut off legal, mansplained marketing to the CMO. And through it all, he never once looked at me like I mattered. I was just the CEO's kid. Safe, soft, irrelevant. Which was exactly what I needed him to think. I'd been quiet, intentionally so, letting him grow roots, get cocky. I scheduled late meetings, then quietly canceled them. Shifted his calendar by 15-minute intervals to make him miss investor syncs. Stayed late every night not to catch up, but to build the perfect profile on our lead investors. Their preferences, the facial tells when they're about to decline a deal, who they like to be interrupted by and who they don't. Every eye flick in a meeting, every time they fake a chuckle. I've been mapping their psychology like a goddamn FBI profiler. And while I watched, he kept slipping. He deleted a flagged email from a regional client, forwarded it to himself, changed the timestamp, then blamed it on an intern. I watched him lie about ops data in a QBR, using numbers I personally scrubbed for accuracy. He kept trying to copy-paste my phrasing in his presentations, not realizing I'd embedded little verbal landmines, phrases the investors hated. Synergy activation made the lead investor grind his teeth. So I fed it to the VP in a memo titled Investor-Approved Language. He used it. Twice. I didn't tell anyone. Why would I? That's not how you end someone like this. You don't fire a man like him. You let him hang himself with the tie he picked out to impress a board that already stopped listening. Today is the pitch. The big one. $100 million on the line. The room is glass-walled and vicious. He's taking the lead. Of course he is. The CEO, my dad, thinks it'll be good for optics. Let the hotshot show off his MBA. Let the silent kid in the corner play second fiddle. Except this fiddle's got strings wrapped in wire, and the bow's a goddamn scalpel. I ironed my shirt last night, pressed it sharp. Not for appearances, for clarity. Today isn't about revenge. It's about reminding the room who's been pulling the strings while Harvard boy flaps his gums. As I walk into the boardroom, I pass a janitor mopping up spilled coffee. He nods at me. I nod back. "Big day?" he asks. "About to get quieter," I mutter. Because the VP doesn't know this yet, but by the time he finishes his little TED talk about market positioning, I'm going to open my mouth once. And when I do, I'm not just going to take back control. I'm going to set the trap. And he's going to walk into it wearing cufflinks that cost more than my first car. The 12 of us filed into the glass box like it was a sentencing hearing. 12 suits, one long obsidian table, and a projector humming like a funeral organ. Outside the room, the skyline blazed with sunrise through tinted windows. Inside, all tension and overpriced cologne. The VP walked in last, late by design, holding the clicker like a scepter. Armani suit, smug half-grin, hair sprayed into battlefield readiness. He looked like he just won a reality show for corporate overlords. I didn't say a word. He started with the usual nonsense. Today's about vision. Today's about disruption. His voice slid across the room like a sales pitch dipped in self-worship. Slide 1. A A stylized Venn diagram with 3 circles labeled agility, impact, and, Christ help us, humanness. He was actually proud of that. Called it the AIH model. Like he'd just reinvented air. I sat second chair, far enough from the projector to be forgettable, close enough to read the fine print on every face. That's the trick. Don't look at the slides. Look at the eyes. The lead investor, Bennett, sat halfway down the table on the right, hands folded. He hadn't blinked since slide 2. I could see the twitch in his cheek every time the VP said, touch point. Bennett's the kind of man who keeps silent until it's surgical. Real old-school predator, Harvard ring, steel watch band, eyes that catalog bullshit like a lie detector with contempt issues. He's the one who needs to be convinced. Everyone else in the room takes their cues from him. If he leans forward, the deal lives. If he checks his phone, we're toast. Slide 3, revenue projections. Total fiction. The VP smoothed his tie, puffed his chest, and rattled off numbers like he'd personally wrangled the economy into submission. I watched Bennett's jaw set. That tick again. A half-second of disgust when a margin forecast was off by 1.2%. That's how closely I've studied him. I knew he'd notice. I made sure of it. See the numbers on that slide? I let the VP use them. Fed them through a memo labeled early draft. Do not use. He used them. Of course he did. He's been burning through every scrap of work he didn't understand, trying to pass it off as brilliance. That was the bait. At slide 5, I finally spoke. Just one sentence. I leaned slightly forward, kept my voice casual. Can we jump to slide 8? I think it addresses the scalability question Bennett flagged last quarter. The room shifted. Heads turned. The CEO blinked like he forgot I had vocal cords. The VP's smile twitched. But Bennett gave me something priceless. A nod. Small. Almost invisible. But it was there. And in that nod, I knew 2 things. 1, he remembered I caught the flaw in last quarter's report before anyone else. 2, he was waiting to see what else I had up my sleeve. The VP coughed, clicked forward too fast. Slide 6. Slide 7. He fumbled the clicker, overcorrected. The screen blinked. For a heartbeat, the room flickered with uncertainty. I folded my hands, still, controlled, watching. Every person in that room was watching him now, but a few were starting to glance my way. Like maybe I wasn't just the CEO's kid after all. Like maybe I was something else. And right then, the VP made the mistake that sealed his fate. He made a joke. Don't worry, folks. My clicker skills are just as agile as our platform. Silence. Flat. Dry. The kind of silence you only get when someone's ego just popped like a balloon full of hot air. And Bennett? He turned his head, just slightly, and looked straight at me again. He didn't smile. He didn't need to. I was adjusting the side monitor, nothing dramatic, just syncing the secondary display for Bennett's line of sight, when the VP leaned in close. Too close. His cologne hit first. Something citrusy, desperate, like he was trying to smell like control. And then, like venom through a straw, he hissed it. I'll get your boss to fire you. Count on it. The words weren't loud, but they carried weight. Tectonic, nuclear, final. The kind of thing you say when you think the battle's already won. When you think the person you're talking to is beneath consequence. I froze for half a beat. No flinch. No reaction. Just a flash. Rage that lit up my spine like someone flipped a switch at the base of my skull. Then it cooled, hardened, and I smiled. Not the kind of smile you give when someone tells a joke. The kind you give before pulling the pin. He had no idea he'd just activated the failsafe. Because here's the thing. I knew he hated me. Knew he thought I was a legacy placeholder. Some cushion nepotism token sitting quietly in meetings until daddy died or promoted me out of guilt. I let him believe that. I fed it to him daily. I said thank you when he cut me off. I let him edit my slides, even when he didn't understand the charts. I let him run the meetings. I made coffee once. Just once. That was enough. He stored it in his brain under servant. Because men like him don't see people like me coming. They don't believe the quiet ones bleed, or plan, or sharpen their patience like a damn scalpel. But I do. And now he gave me permission. He made it personal. He thought he was the chess master. He just picked up a pawn without realizing it was wired to blow. "You good?" he asked louder, eyes flicking to the rest of the room, like maybe he was just helping with tech. Like maybe I wasn't one breath away from breaking his whole facade wide open. I nodded. "Perfect." He sat back down, cocky as hell, tapping the clicker like it was a detonator. The slide rolled to projected quarterly returns. Still inflated. Still fiction. I glanced over to Bennett, still watching, and I thought, all right then, let's do it your way. Internal monologue? It screamed, "You just made your last move." Because now I wasn't just here to protect the pitch. I was here to end a career. Quietly, elegantly, like setting a pressure plate under a marble floor and waiting for the step. And the best part? He'd still think he was in control until the floor vanished under him. He thought the clicker was power. He didn't notice the laser dot on his chest. And I was the one holding the trigger. "Dad, should I go?" I said it calm, not loud, not trembling. No theatrical pause or mic drop. Just a flat, measured question as I stood at the side of the room, still near the monitor, the VP mid-ramble about cross-sector synergy expansion. The words hung there like smoke. 12 heads turned. Halfway, slow, controlled, like a boardroom seance where someone just heard a ghost speak. The CEO, my father, froze, eyes wide, halfway between confusion and calculation. His lips parted like he wanted to say my name but wasn't sure if this was a joke, a warning, or a test. He didn't say a word. But the VP? He went white. Not the embarrassed I said something stupid kind of white. The just got caught peeing in the pool kind of white. His lips curled into something almost like a laugh, but it cracked halfway out. "What?" he chuckled, trying to play it off. "We were just..." But the investor closed his notebook. Snap. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just final. Bennett, the one who really mattered, turned his head. Slowly. Purposefully. And locked eyes with the VP like a sniper measuring wind speed. "Is this your A-team?" he asked. 6 words. No raise in tone. No emotion. But they detonated. The air pressure in the room dropped. You could hear someone's throat click dry as they swallowed. Even the intern in the corner stopped taking notes. I stayed exactly where I was. Spine straight. Face blank. Hands lightly clasped. Because this wasn't my explosion to detonate. It was his implosion to endure. The VP stammered. Of course. Yes. Absolutely. Just a bit of internal banter. We, joke like that all the time, right? He looked around the table, eyes searching for allies. None came. Legal counsel stared at her pen like it was her last defense against stupidity. Marketing leads suddenly found deep interest in her water glass. Even the chief revenue officer, usually his karaoke buddy at after-work drinks, leaned back ever so slightly. The only one who moved was Bennett. He tilted his head toward me. "You have something prepared?" he asked. "I do." "Then let's hear it." The VP made a noise like a laugh, but it was hollow, like air leaking out of a tire. He still held the clicker, like it was a talisman that could save him. The CEO finally spoke, voice low and stiff. "Maybe let them walk us through their section. Them. Not my kid. Not my strategist. Just neutral. Distant." He was hedging. I saw it. And that was fine. I didn't need cover anymore. I stepped forward, calm as a tide rolling in. Took the remote from the VP's hand like I was picking up a napkin someone had dropped. He didn't resist, he just let go. Everyone sat back, silently, shifting their weight. The posture of an audience preparing for something else entirely. The VP was no longer the main character. He was background static. I took a breath. Not to calm down. There was no panic left in me. Only precision. Only fire inside ice. Because the power just shifted. Not in a yell. Not in a fist slam. But in a sentence, a glance, and the sudden vacuum around a man who thought everyone was laughing with him. He had no idea the room had already moved on. And I hadn't even begun yet. I clicked to a black slide. No branding. No title. Just the clean, white outline of a revised model we hadn't officially approved, because I hadn't shown it to anyone. Except Bennett. 3 weeks ago. In passing. Over a 5-minute coffee break during quarterly reviews where he mentioned casually, offhand, like a throwaway line, how every pitch overestimates launch velocity and underestimates long-tail saturation. I'd spent every night since then building something that didn't. Now that model sat on the screen like a loaded gun. I didn't smile. I didn't say, let me walk you through. I just began. Adjusted for true cycle adoption rates across our top 5 verticals. We see a compound annual growth ceiling that flattens after Q8. Most pitches ignore that. We don't. Click. Second slide. Ops diagram overlaid with target churn mitigation. Rather than inflate forecast retention, we engineered an actual throttle system. Watch this. Click. Third slide. A dynamic sim pulsing slow and steady, showing the pressure points that ease when you introduce real-time prioritization. Bennett leaned in, didn't blink, and slowly, like he didn't want to disturb whatever just shifted in the air, he uncapped his pen. Behind me, the VP shifted in his seat. No, hold on, this wasn't in our approved deck. His voice was brittle, thin. I didn't turn around. I didn't stop. Just clicked again. Slide 4, real metrics. Live data. Not the PR gloss fluff he'd been peddling, but actual reports sourced through the back-end ops pipeline I helped build in year 2. The CEO raised one hand without looking away from the screen. Let them finish. Let them. Not him. Not her. Just them. I could feel it then, the shift. The clean snapping of invisible wires between the VP and the room. He was no longer the conductor. He was background furniture. A chair with a pulse. Bennett tapped his pen once. This model, who finalized it? I did, I said. No pause. He nodded again. Simple. Wordless. But that nod was a gavel slamming in a courtroom nobody else knew they were in. Slide 5. Preemptive concern mapping. Every investor fear translated into data layer decisions with impact ranges. I didn't talk like I was selling it. I talked like it already existed. Because it did. I built it. Quietly. In the gaps between his ego trips and his Slack rants about brand resonance. Slide 6. Market responsiveness prediction, including the viral failsafe model. Custom coded. I never even showed the engineering team. It pulled from trend-adaptive AI modules and broke down high-variance input into digestible tiers. What's the trigger threshold? Bennett asked. 3.2% volatility window. Anything past that, it slows distribution and reroutes comms to delay churn. He blinked once. Smart. The VP tried again. I think we're getting a little off track. The CEO shot him a look. Not a harsh one. Tired one. And just like that, he sat back. Alone. Unplugged. I went on for 9 more slides. No jokes. No flash. No vision talk. Just precision. Clarity. Truth with teeth. The kind of pitch you give when you've already done the work and you're just reading the story back to them. When I finally stopped, I didn't say, "Any questions?" I closed the deck, folded my hands, and waited. The silence wasn't awkward. It was reverent. Bennett set his pen down, folded his hands just like mine, and said, "Now that's the model I want my money on." The VP didn't move, didn't speak, didn't blink, because there was nothing left for him to say. The unraveling had begun, thread by thread, and I wasn't tugging. I was watching, sharp, calm, exactly where I was always meant to be. No longer hidden, no longer silent, just undeniable. Bennett leaned back in his chair and laced his fingers, elbows wide like a lion surveying the savannah. Then he tilted his head just slightly toward me and asked, "Walk me through your rationale for bypassing the Q2 buy-in on the Sharo vertical." Everyone else chased it. It wasn't a softball. It was a trap question, the kind of thing you throw out to see who flinches. Sharo had been a siren song in Q2. Shiny returns, sexy buzzwords, 2 podcast mentions, and a fast-rising valuation curve that fizzled just as quick. I didn't flinch. Click. A clean chart appeared. My version. It showed predictive volatility overlays against a known hype cycle framework. We flagged Sharo as a sugar high, I said. Flash valuation. No downstream moat. The moment retention dipped below 42% in their beta, we knew it was style over substance. He nodded once. Your team ran that analysis? I did. Alone. Night of May 14th. Attached it to the ops memo at 2:13 a.m. Across the table, the VP adjusted his cuffs. His collar was starting to dampen. One finger tapped a nervous Morse code on his knee. Well, hindsight's 2020, right? He muttered, forcing a weak chuckle. No one could have known Sharo would tank. That's when the junior associate, the quiet one from research, the kid he never learned the name of, spoke up without looking up from their notepad. Actually, narrator flagged that 2 quarters ago. It's in the ops memo. Page 6. Silence. That wasn't supposed to happen. The VP blinked. What? The associate finally looked up. Calm. Unbothered. You presented a revised risk assessment 2 weeks later without that data. But it was already logged. Timestamped. In the archive. They didn't say it with malice. No edge. No venom. Just the kind of dispassionate bullet that ends careers. The VP's mouth opened. Closed. Opened again. I wasn't aware of, but no one was listening, because I had already clicked to the next slide. Sharo wasn't the only landmine. Slide 23. Comparative behavioral tracking across 5 investor types. Slide 24. Deviation analysis on predicted versus actual market reaction to vertical pivots. Slide 25. Realignment forecast if Sharo-style volatility returned in Q4. The VP was sinking in his seat now. Every generic pivot he tried came out flat, deflated like a balloon someone sat on. Let's not get too caught up in hypotheticals, he tried. This is about momentum, about forward thinking, about accuracy, Bennett interrupted. Not a question, a judgment. The VP sat back, quiet. Bennett turned back to me. Continue. I did. No gloating, no smirk. Just the rhythm of someone who's done the work and doesn't need applause. Each slide sharpened the contrast between noise and signal, between flash and function, between him and me. And the trap? It had already sprung. Not with a bang, not with a scream, but with a time-stamped memo and a whisper from the intern he forgot existed. He brought a knife to a data war, and I built the battlefield. The meeting didn't end so much as it settled, like smoke after a small fire. The final slide faded to black, and no one rushed to speak. No eager handshakes, no forced laughter, just a slow, dawning quiet as every person in the room realized they just watched someone walk a tightrope backwards, blindfolded, and still land it. Bennett stood first, not fast, deliberate. He nodded once, at me, not the room, and began stacking his materials with the kind of care you give to something worth protecting. The others followed suit, murmurs starting low but clear. Impressive. Didn't see that coming. Who's the architect again? The VP stood too, stiff, smiling like a man trying to swim in a tar pit. He extended a hand toward Bennett. Appreciate your time today, he said, voice pitched for sincerity but buckling under strain. We're excited to bring this momentum into execution mode. Bennett didn't even glance at the outstretched hand. He looked past it, directly at the CEO, and said, "You should promote your strategist." Then he turned and walked out. No handshake, no goodbyes, just footsteps and finality. The VP's hand dropped like a broken antenna. He blinked, cleared his throat, looked around for a soft place to land. None came. The other investors filed out, some nodding politely at me, a few brushing past the VP without acknowledgement. One of them, Ainsley, I think, offered me a wink and mouthed "damn," and then it was just us, the CEO, the VP, and me. The CEO exhaled slowly. His tie suddenly looked too tight. He rubbed the back of his neck like he wanted to unscrew his own head. He stepped close and said quietly, "You knew this would happen." I shook my head, voice flat. I didn't plan it. He just handed it to me. The CEO looked over at the VP, who was standing there like someone trying to wake from a bad dream that was still very much happening. The CEO's eyes dimmed, not angry, not sad, just disappointed. The kind of look a father gives a kid who touched the stove after being warned. "We'll handle it," he muttered, then added, almost like he didn't mean to say it out loud. "He was supposed to support you." I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. The VP straightened up, trying to reassemble himself from the inside out. "Look," he started, doing that weird neck roll he did when buying time. "I think we might have had some wires crossed. The dynamic in there wasn't reflective of our broader synergy." The CEO held up a single finger. Not to his lips, just in the air, and the VP shut up. I watched his expression flicker through panic, confusion, and finally a numb sort of surrender. His shoulders fell. The light went out. He didn't know when the knife went in, only that he'd bled out before dessert. As I gathered my laptop and slid it back into my bag, the CEO touched my shoulder lightly. Not fatherly, not sentimental, grateful. I left the room without looking back, because the pitch was over. The verdict had landed, and the execution, already in motion, quiet, surgical, complete. That's how you assassinate someone in a boardroom. Not with shouts or drama, with data, with truth, with silence so deafening it drowns their last, desperate words. The next morning, the VP's office door was open. That alone was a red flag. He never left it open, not even for janitorial staff. He used to joke that transparency is a liability, like it was clever instead of pathetic. But now the room stood hollow. No laptop, no blazer draped over the Herman Miller chair, no ego perched behind the glass desk like a gargoyle over spreadsheets he didn't understand. Just space, and a faint ghost of citrus cologne clinging to the walls like failure in aerosol form. By 9:12 a.m., word got around. HR was walking him out, quietly. 2 reps, one from legal, one from employee relations, flanking him like pallbearers with clipboards. No shouting, no scene. Just a stiff march toward the elevator and a final badge tap that didn't turn green. He didn't look at me when they passed. Didn't nod. Didn't smirk. Didn't even blink. Just kept his eyes fixed ahead. Like if he didn't acknowledge the people watching, he could pretend it wasn't happening. The official Slack message came in at 9:37. Effective immediately, VP name will be departing the organization due to a misalignment of leadership vision. We thank him for his contributions and wish him the best in future endeavors. Translation: he got buried so fast, the shovel's still warm. By 10:03, whispers started bubbling. What happened in that pitch? Heard it was brutal. I thought he had Bennett on lock? Someone said, narrator, replaced him. I kept my answers minimal. Nods, shrugs, the occasional neutral. The deck spoke for itself. At 11:15, the CEO called a full executive team meeting. Everyone shuffled into the main boardroom. Same chairs, same air, same table, but it felt different. Lighter, like something toxic had been scrubbed out with bleach and decency. He kept it short. "We're making some structural adjustments," he said, standing at the head of the table without notes. "As of today, we're consolidating strategy and ops under one function." Then he turned to me. No smile, no wink, just authority. Narrator will be stepping into the role of Chief Strategy Officer effective immediately. There was a pause. Not for objections. No one dared. Just long enough for the weight of it to settle. My old seat was already gone. A new one had been placed at the table. Higher back, wider arms. Mine. I sat without ceremony, without speech, without a glance at the now empty spot across the table. Because that chair, it had vanished. No plaque, no farewell email. Just a vacancy where once stood noise and buzzwords and threats whispered in boardroom corners. I took out my notepad, clicked my pen, and began outlining the next quarter's strategic adjustments. Because I wasn't here to gloat. I was here to build. To do what I'd always done. Quietly, precisely, invisibly. Except now, everyone could see it, and no one would mistake me for the mascot again. The new office still smelled like fresh carpet and fresh mistakes. Someone else's, not mine. No nameplate on the door yet. Just a strip of masking tape where someone scribbled, "Temp Strategy," in Sharpie. like the title hadn't caught up to the reality yet. It was quiet. No echo of the VP's voice bouncing off glass. No motivational posters about grit or grind. Just me, a cup of lukewarm coffee, and a single contract draft glowing on my monitor. The number was obscene. Bennett's follow-up came in less than 12 hours after the pitch. No frills. Just a subject line. Expansion proposal, triple commit. The body was short. If you build this right, we triple down. You know what to do. Attached, a multi-phase growth plan. If we execute correctly, the original $100 million becomes $300 million by next fiscal. No middlemen. No presentations. Just direct channeling through me. I didn't smile right away. First, I read every clause, every footnote, every contingency. Then I leaned back, exhaled, and looked at the one personal item I'd placed on the desk. A small frame, matte black, no frills. Inside, a yellowed index card, edges frayed. A quote from the only mentor I ever respected. Guy retired to Oregon, builds fly fishing rods now. Left me with one line I never forgot. Never wrestle with pigs. Just design the fence so they wander off. Took years to learn what that meant. Took one whisper from the VP to put it into action. The phone buzzed once, breaking the silence. No ringtone, just a single pulse. Text from Bennett. Glad you stayed. You were always the real reason we listened. I stared at it for a long time. Didn't reply. Didn't need to. This wasn't about being thanked. Wasn't about revenge or proving a point. It was about staying in the room long enough for the loud ones to burn out, implode, or simply walk themselves into obsolescence. It was about building the kind of thing no one sees coming because they're too busy looking at the wrong person. The knives never left my hands. They were just out of sight. Tucked beneath slide decks, hidden in data, sharpened on every late night I spent watching them underestimate me. Let them call it nepotism. Just makes it easier to keep the knives hidden.